All right. Hello and welcome to I believe it's episode 28 of the Intermarine podcast. I'm excited to say that we have a guest on today, Erich. He goes by That Mountain Life on Instagram and I believe TikTok as well. He is a father, content creator, skier, snow patroller, and among a plethora of, I'm sure, many other things. But I will let Erich do a quick little introduction if you'd like.
Thanks for having me on, Andrew. I'm a father of three kids. We live in a small mountain town in the Canadian Rocky Mountains here in British Columbia. And I document my family's outdoor adventures. I started about 3 years ago on YouTube and Instagram, jumped on TikTok last spring. And so I do short form, long form content. And I like just learning and thinking and experiencing life to its, well, I don't know, it's cliche to say to its fullest, but I like paying attention and pivoting and just learning. I'm a big Bitcoin and crypto enthusiast, and we're unschooling our kids. We homeschool our kids. We eat whole food, plant-based. So we've done a good job ostracizing ourselves from a bunch of parts of mainstream society, and it's just part of my path, and it's just fun doing what we do. I'm trying to just intentionally design a life that I want to be living instead of being asleep and doing things I don't want to do.
Fair enough. It sounds amazing. Yeah. Why not do all of those things, right? It's funny because
Yeah.
I have a second podcast actually with a guy named Ray. I don't know if you've ever come across him. He's Transcending Me on TikTok and Coalition for You on Instagram. But he's actually Canadian as well. He lives on Vancouver Island, on a small town, Vancouver Island.
Okay.
But yeah, he's a bald guy. He's 42, I think, but he has one daughter. He homeschools. It sounds like you kind of remind me a little bit of him in certain ways, but it's awesome. I love your content, especially the ski content. I've always skied since I was like 4 years old. So I dabble in some ski content here and there. Sometimes like my YouTube day in the life vlogs, like I made a couple last winter. I pretty much, my parents have a house in Park City. So I lived there last year working remote for a while, but I love it. And I love all of your content. It's really cool. But yeah, I'm curious what initially got you into creating content. Like what made you want to start? Was there a certain switch, or was it kind of gradually just started posting some videos of your family and kids, or what was the initial type of content, I guess, as well?
There's multiple reasons why I started. And I think it kind of stemmed from like that. Are you familiar with Gary Vee?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So as far as like being on social media, listening to Gary Vee, understanding the way the world is going, and by world, I mean just our tech society, that there was that kind of component. And so there's like that hustle culture, or that idea of like, instead of like binge watching Netflix at night, like, could I learn a new skill that would become valuable or of value from just a hiring standpoint, let alone my own stuff taking off? Like, question mark, don't know. But I just kind of valued the idea of hopping on YouTube to watch tutorials on how to make videos. I dabbled as a teenager on like in student council and certain things. I ended up being the guy trying to like muck around with some videos and an English project. So I had like edited videos and understood a timeline and basic things, but I didn't know. I was a late adopter. I was anti Facebook, and I didn't hop on social media for a long time. I got Instagram about 3 years ago. Like, I think it was, maybe 3.5 years, but then I didn't post for the first like 6 months. And so I was just interested in learning and trying to make learn a new skill. And then the consolation prize was I could document my family's outings and create a little memory pool of our adventures. Even if it's just some crappy GoPro footage and I put it together with some music, it's a little bit more palatable to watch than if I had all this unedited clips. Like, it's hard to go back and watch 40 clips from a camping trip, but if I put together a 2-minute highlight reel, it's kind of like easy on the eyes to watch.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and it is really enjoyable to watch. It's funny you mentioned Gary Vee, because he is one of the people who I credit with getting myself into content, like really thinking about, why we value other people's perceptions of our lives so much. Like I used to live my life based on that. I talk about it a lot, and just living based on other people's perceptions just doesn't make any sense. And so hearing his, I think I first came across him maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and then finally started making content a year and a half ago. And that's how it kind of started for me. But it's cool. It sounds kind of similar to you. My stuff kind of just like evolves as I evolve, and it's fun to be able to document things as I go, not necessarily like I'm documenting a family's life or anything, but I'm almost like documenting myself and my own journey. And I can even, if I go back, I don't even like sometimes going back to my videos from last year because my energy is just so much different that I'm almost like, oh my God, who is that person? But it's cool to see. So has that been, I guess it's got to be a pretty enjoyable thing to be able to incorporate your family seemingly so seamlessly into it. Do you ever find times where you kind of struggle balancing that and having your kids and family in your content, and then kind of keeping that separate, choosing like when you kind of like are creating content and when you're not creating content? Or has it kind of like evolved so that it flows pretty naturally?
Yeah, like it's hard to it might be hard for me to describe, but I can talk about my thoughts about it. And Gary V's concept of document, don't create is what made me, it's what gave me permission to myself, empowered me to hit record and post something without it being curated or perfect. So the perfection piece, I gave myself permission to just let go of perfection and to just post. So hit record, whatever happens. And I mean, if any parents are listening, it's like the idea, like most parents can relate to the idea of like trying to get your photos together for like a family photo shoot is just like annoyingly impossible. Like you tell a kid to go left, they go right. And you tell them to smile for a photo and come here. And so the idea of staging clips and shots and turning my family to like talent where they need to like stay stage left until I'm ready for the shot when the sun, it's like that is not what I'm doing. I literally tell myself, hit record, and whatever happens, happens. Now, for example, my one son, my oldest one, last winter, he's 7, he can rip. He's starting to ski really fast. And I just told him, I was like, hey, if you want me to film you, if you ever want to be in some of daddy's videos, you need to like let me go downhill sometimes and maybe let your brother go down first and then you could go, right? So a little bit of just about like coaching and an awareness piece of like, I have a hard time filming you when you ski as fast as you can because I'm only going to get you for 2 seconds. And so there's that part of it. Literally less than 1% is like, hey, stay there while I get in position and then I'll try to like them. But I do that occasionally. And so that makes it more, it makes it flow for me a lot more because I'm just like, yeah, the camera's on. We're doing something cool, like doing something that we love doing, biking, paddling in the like winter's our jam. Winter's my bread and butter content for sure. And it just flows. And I mean, I'm in between gigs now where like this is becoming my full-time thing and I'm not working as a paramedic as much. I still ski patrol 3 days a week and it takes a lot of time. So what I am realizing is I'm working from home, carving my own hours out, creating content, and I'm in the office now instead of going away to work, working for myself. So there's that kind of like entrepreneur balance of like being a dad, stay with our kids, being homeschooled and working from home. So that has to like, I just have to be intentional about that.
Certainly. Yeah. I think people have this mixed misconception about content creators, and it's just like this, oh, like foofy kind of like life where you just, oh, I just get to film stuff. But it like editing is my least favorite part. I love just like flipping on the camera and talking and like just making videos and stuff. So I allow myself similarly the whole document don't create, like perfectionism is just insecurity being masked as perfectionism essentially, has helped me a ton because I've started doing more like YouTube vlogs, just like day in the life vlogs, and I try and just post a bunch and not be too nitpicky about what is going into it, or having the perfect cuts or anything. Like they're quite raw. I film it all on my phone and I have the 4K on my iPhone, so like it is at least decent quality. But I think a lot of people, when it comes to creating content, they think they have to create something, and it's like, no, everyone has a story to tell. I think so many people could, if not every single person on earth could be creating content. It's a lot of times just fear of failure, fear of judgment, how people are going to perceive you, which was a big reason that I didn't do it for so long. And I'm grateful that I sort of was able to overcome that. But yeah, when it comes to documenting, not creating, I can imagine that just makes it much easier for you to not have these, perceptions of how you think your content is supposed to look. And then all of a sudden, like, you're just recording and something cool happens and it's like you put it out there. And whether even the idea of something being cool or good is all like conceptual, and it's very subjective. It's not objective. So some people might really think something's really cool that you may not, but if you at least have the clip and you put it out there, it's like you never really know what's going to blow up all the time. And as long as you're enjoying doing it and putting it out there, like, who's to tell you otherwise?
Totally. Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a great creative. That was the other reason I started, was having a creative outlet. Like, that was I don't draw, journal, write, I was just consuming content. And I was like, wait a minute, I want to I knew there was value, or I would learn and potentially grow from the opportunity of creating something,
Yeah. That's kind of what, honestly, for me, a lot of it started from just, I was watching YouTube, and I've always been into fitness, and I was watching a lot of fitness YouTubers, and I was like, I could do stuff like this. Like, I watched a couple day in the life videos, and I was like, I could do this. This is filmed on an iPhone. I have an iPhone. I live a life. Like,
Yeah.
I can do this. And so, yeah, it just kind of started from there. And then I came across TikTok, and it's kind of taken off from there. But
when did you start on TikTok?
End of July of 2020. I posted one video in June, just because Gary Vee was talking so much about TikTok. So I made like a little recipe video, I think in June, and then didn't post anything for like 2 months. And then I did a day in the life YouTube vlog, took the intro of that, and put it on TikTok. So it was a reenactment of the dodgeball scene where White Goodman has, I don't know if you've seen that, but he has his nipples clamped and he's got like a donut in front of him, or a pizza, and he keeps like shocking himself to try and like convince himself not to eat the donut.
Like in the movie Dodgeball?
Yeah.
I've seen it eons ago, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah. So I reenacted that sort of clip and made it the intro to my YouTube day in the life vlog. And then I had that video. So I was like, oh, I have a TikTok account. Might as well put it on there. It seems like something people watch. It's kind of silly. And then it went viral, and I got like 3,000 or 4,000 followers from that. And then it's like, all right, screw it. I might as well just keep making stuff. I've already decided I'm going to start making content. So might as well see what this TikTok thing does. But
cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So when you decided to start creating, was it like, what were the initial types of videos? Were you just hitting record in family environment? Like, I don't know what your initial videos looked like. Was it a lot of ski content, or did it start with something else and kind of evolve into those types of things?
November of 2018, I had my knockoff GoPro, like a Yi 4K sport action camera, and a phone, and I bought a cheap like accessory kit, and I was watching a few other vloggers, Casey Neistat. There was another guy that was doing Coney Wainer. He was like daily vlog. So I was just consuming YouTube content and listening to these like creatives vlogging and talking about content and creating vlogs about vlogging. It's kind of like this meta vlogging world of what all these creators talk about sometimes. And so I just went out with like a little bike ride around, like literally my first few vlogs. Yeah, they were like in the kitchen and biking around, maybe like 2 or 3 day in the lives, or me just saying like, this is me making a terrible video and I want to put it out to the world and find my like workflow. And that was leading up into ski season. Because what I had done prior to that was make one video of like each, definitely my oldest kid, because he's obviously older. I skied with him longer. When he was 2, I would do like a video of him skiing at the end of the year, because he was at his pinnacle of that season, right? At the end of the year, he's the oldest, he's the biggest, he's the most seasoned. And so every year I kind of made a year-end video of my kids before I started making content. So I was totally skiing motivated and capturing the joy I have of skiing with my kids and their abilities, and just like putting it out there. But after I started doing some intro vlogs on YouTube, I was trying to get ramped up for like a workflow of ski videos that was going to be more of like I mean, I didn't pressure myself and say, oh, you're going to make one every week or whatever. I found one a week really hard to do at the start. I don't even think I was there last year. I need to take the odd week off, and it's exhausting skiing 110 days a year and parenting 3 kids and editing videos. And so the skiing is what started is my motivation for it's because it's just I have such a zest and a passion for it. And so when I hit record, I feel like I'm just sharing a true part of me and a real passion. And that's like kind of the best type of content that I want to watch. When somebody's amped up on something and jazz and it's their passion and they can talk about it, it's usually more enticing content, right?
Yeah, certainly. It's almost just like an extension of yourself rather than trying to be this like separate curated thing that you're trying to like become a part of you. It's like it's already a part of you. You're just expressing it more clearly and expressing that passion that you have. And I think people can very much feel that. Like people say, you know, you walk into a room and there are vibes of the room. Like I think there are vibes in people's content, and I see that certainly with your content. Like I think that's why people are drawn to it. Like there are a lot of skiing related videos out there, but there's a reason that certain people choose to follow your skiing outdoors related videos. And I think it very much is like people can sense that sort of authenticity. Like you are clearly very passionate about it, you enjoy it, you know, you love your family, you love just like creating and sharing things. And at the end of the day, like everyone has that opportunity. Some people just like take advantage of it a little bit more, but I think it's definitely something that people can sense in things when you're being authentic and not trying to be something that you're not. You're just being yourself and sharing it with the world.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious. This is more like for me personally, because I'm kind of at a stage where I still have a full-time job, but I really enjoy doing content. I've been doing more and more podcast episodes. I have a second podcast and just like figuring out ways to monetize. I'm curious when you started looking into that and like the main ways that you sort of monetize with things. Is it a lot of brand deals or other types of connected content, or what's your sort of mindset been with that?
Well, I'm not there. I'm not fully there yet. That's for sure. We, you know, February 1st of last year, so 10 months ago, I had 3,000 followers on Instagram, and I wasn't on TikTok. So this is all still pretty new. And by the end of April, you know, I had 130,000 Instagram followers or whatever. Like it just blew. I basically got over 100,000 followers on Instagram in 2 months because of my mic'd up content of my daughter. And so it starts with product sponsorships and a few paid ones. And I ended up hiring after like 4 or 5 months, a team from my town, 2 gals, great skills. They just launched their own digital marketing thing. And the short answer is it's hard. It's tougher than like stuff doesn't just land on your lap. Like, you know, it's easy to be like, hey, I've got 400,000, I've got over 500,000 followers on all my platforms. Like, pay me to make a video. And it's like, it doesn't quite work that way. So we've gotten some big ticket product sponsorships now in the form of like ski gear for the family, and so head skis is a sponsor of ours, and they're decking us out head to toe, which is awesome. All 5 of us too, which is like not cheap when you think about how expensive ski gear is. And we're talking boots, helmets, like goggles, ski, everything. So that's like worth a lot of my income that would have to go to that for our family. Bikes, our kids got suited up with mountain bikes from a bike company called Woom Bikes in the US. So like there's big ticket. So those big ticket sponsorship items for products help me. But at the end of the day, I want to pay the mortgage too. I literally want to be able to make between 40 and 60 grand a year. Like we live off about 70 grand a year Canadian. So it's like, if I could make 50, 60K a year doing the social media stuff and through brand deals and a little bit of AdSense. So YouTube AdSense, you know, my summer content doesn't get nearly the amount of views as winter. I'm hoping to be able to like double my subscribers on YouTube this winter. And, you know, there's royalties that roll in from those videos. So that helps a little bit. But I think I need to not be afraid to hire the right person. I'm moving on from my previous team, and they think it's a good fit too for me to just move on and try to find somebody with the connections with brand sponsorships. And I'm still learning and navigating this, so I don't have a great answer for you other than nothing's a gimme. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, I mean, we always are, right? But it's nice just to hear other people's perspectives. And I think, yeah, I think that's the more I talk to people about it, the more it's like, yeah, it's not just this thing that happened. Like, I think people think that, oh, you have, now I have like over close to 600,000 on TikTok and like 20,000 on Instagram. And they're like, oh, you must just make a bunch of money from that. It's like, no, that's not how it works, man. Like I wrote it, like, go ahead.
Well, I get hit up every week for a brand sponsorship deal on TikTok or Instagram, and I say no 98% of the time because it's not on point with my brand. So I am getting offers, and they're always like, send us your fee schedule, or how much would it cost for you to make this video, and let us and I'm sure I could have made 10 or 20 grand with a bunch of crap, but it's like not on point with my brand or my values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
that's such an important
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, such an important piece. And I think when you think about, advertising a product, if it aligns with your brand, then there's absolutely no downside to it whatsoever, because it's the people following, it's going to bring them value as well. But if you pick the wrong thing, then all of a sudden you're trading your audience's trust for a certain amount of money. So like I have yet to do any brand stuff. I get similarly a lot of DMs and emails, just asking to do a sponsored post or whatever. And I'm just like, I've just kind of said no. There might have been a couple that would have been fine to work with, I think, but I don't know. I just have been staying away from it. I don't need it right now. So I'd rather just kind of like continue doing it because I enjoy it and I have my job, which allows me to not have to worry about monetizing right now. So, and it's been not so busy that I can't do both. And I also prioritize doing the content stuff. Like it's always kind of top of mind. I really enjoy it. So I think that's something else that people who are thinking about getting into this space, they hear a lot that like, oh, you don't like your job, just quit. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, is this thing that you think you love so much, like this sort of lifestyle, do you actually love it so much? Because if you're not putting the hours in outside of your job, if you have a 9 to 5, you still have, outside of sleeping like 8 hours a day and for like, I don't know, 25, 30 hours on the weekend to do these things. So like, until you're spending that time on this, don't think about quitting your job immediately. Like figure out if it's what you actually enjoy, because if you do actually enjoy it, you have a decent amount of time in a day. And like you were saying before, if you don't necessarily binge Netflix for 5 hours every night, you have the time. It's there. So if it is your passion, you'll find the time for it.
Totally. And the one other income source I forgot to mention, related, it's more for my niche, but tourism organizations have money from governments and tax dollars to literally promote areas. And so from like a family tourism niche perspective, we are great candidates and have partnered up with a couple of those. So those are like paid gigs to come and experience and showcase an area. So instead of it being a product that we are like teaming up with to sponsor, it's more of like an experience sponsorship, or like, again, they're paying me for my time and my reach. And I really enjoy this hybrid concept of like marketing. I have a friend who's a VP of marketing for Resorts of the Canadian Rockies. Great guy. He's in my corner. He's very supportive of me. And he sort of talks about this hybrid marketing agency where it's like, I'm not a cinematographer or like a videographer making like sexy, smooth 4K like footage. And I mean, I dabbled, and it's so fun to try to go there and do that. But like, I'm not like a top-notch videographer. And I'm also not a big marketing firm in the city that does billboards or commercials on TV or have access to those networks. But what social media 2.0 has allowed us to become is like, I'm a creator and make videos to some degree of proficiency, and I have marketing reach for very specific targeted niche of outdoor adventure gear and family products. And so there's this hybrid business model that I think if I really gain some clarity on that and pitch it in that way and say like, hey, I'm the new one-stop marketing shop for video content. It's like, in the old days, you pay 4 or 5K or 10K for a videographer to show up and film this product anyway, and then you have to pay a third-party agency to connect and send it out there. Like, you're already 15K deep. Pay me 5 or more, right? Pay me 5K, pay me 10K, and we're gonna like target the audience because this product is more specific, or this experience is gonna land. And I have 500,000 followers that might be more interested in this experience, or so like it just seems like an almost more efficient way of like funneling marketing energy and money out there. So that's my new business model pitch.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it seems like it makes a lot more sense, and you're able to, if you're able to incorporate a product or a type of thing that is sponsoring you into a typical type of video that you make, it's like it's so seamless and people enjoy your content. They have trust in you clearly, and so it's almost like it makes a lot of sense. It's not necessarily an area that I have done a ton of digging into. I think I will more so as I just continue, creating or continue documenting and whatnot. But it's very interesting. I think things are beginning to shift because I mean, I just know, like, I work a digital advertising job. It's mostly programmatic. I don't work as much on like with other like influencers on the other side of it at all. But I think it's kind of crazy. I work at like an agency, but one of our bigger clients is my main client, and seeing how much money they spend on these things, that like the conversion rates are not that great, and they're kind of just like throwing money around, and they don't really care, 10, 100 grand here and there, overspend, underspend, like whatever. Not to say that like that happens all the time, but just like they're throwing around so much money and their budgets are so big. And if they were, I think there's going to start to be more and more of a shift, and we're already seeing it with utilizing people as, the sort of placement where you want your product to be. There's already a specific audience, like especially looking on TikTok. Like TikTok has every single thing out there. I mean, YouTube too, Instagram too, but it's like any concept, any sort of niche that you want to find, it's out there, and the product can align with the person, and the person can align with the product, and just have a much more targeted approach to the consumer, like just right to their psyche, as opposed to, in this, like everyone's used to on TV or just like random stuff online. It's like actually, meshed into the content that's already being created and they're already consuming.
Totally. Yeah, no, I want to streamline that kind of concept and even like have a good pitch, right? And I kind of struggle, or sometimes my energy, some companies are like, hey, we get digital marketing advertising and like using influencers makes sense, and they're like easier to work with because they're just like, yeah, we should shower these guys with our products and maybe even pay them $1,000 or $5,000 here. And then other companies, you want to partner with them, but they're like we don't have a budget for that, or like it's almost like there's this convincing energy of like whoever's making the calls has to, like, they're gatekeeping or and they have their budgets, and that's fair. But I just find like having to convince a company to work for you, it's like it's not really going to work out as well, I don't think. In a sense, it's nice when it lines so well, they just reach out to me, and I'm just like, yeah, that's a product we've already been using or would use or we have used in the past, or I know your brand and I'm familiar. So it just becomes really like more efficient and seamless, right?
Yeah, certainly. I get that too. Like if they're not excited about your content and the potential to work with you, like I don't know, that would turn me off pretty quick too. Cause I think some people see it and some people don't. And it's the same with, a lot of things that are shifting in the world these days, and just seeing, what could be changed and the opportunities that we have. And I think you mentioned Bitcoin and crypto before. I'm big into Bitcoin and crypto and that whole world. It's very intriguing to me. I got into Bitcoin through a friend who is like crazy he's just about Bitcoin. He thinks everything else is, eventually going to zero. So he has
He's a Bitcoin maxi. He's a maximalist.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he got me into it. He was texting me and another friend. It was last July of 2020, similar to the time that I actually started on content. And he was like, do you guys have any Bitcoin? And I was like, oh no, I had these excuses like, I just invested in some other stuff. And he's like, you're both idiots. I was like, what? All right, tell me more. So I actually listened to him and kind of went down that Bitcoin rabbit hole and watched a ton of interviews, and it was very intriguing. And I saw like the stock to flow chart, and that's kind of what like flipped the switch for me. I was like, oh, this isn't just like random spikes happening. It's like very much, a path that makes sense. So yeah, when did you first get introduced to it, or what
Uh,
has your path into that been?
when I was 26 years old, I became a dad by accident, unplanned. And I wanted to be smart with money. Because I knew money, like trading my time for money as a dad for indefinitely isn't something I wanted to do. And I don't know, I guess I was smart enough or aware enough to like be open to reading some finance books. So I kind of read a couple of traditional finance books, The Wealthy Barber, Rich Dad Poor Dad, just kind of like followed the boomers tracks of like, oh, you're supposed to put away 10% every month. The problem was like we lived a ski bum, frugal mountain lifestyle. And like I didn't always have like cash flow. We kind of like I didn't have this high paying corporate job or like a lot of extra, but I still knew that like, if you only have $500 to start with $500, start with 100, start with 50, like, 10% compounding is 10% compounding. It doesn't matter how much you start with. And so I sat down with a few advisors and started learning, reading the books. And then we had the marijuana pot stock booms was starting, and this was pre-legalization in Canada. And I decided to put some real estate money. So we ended up selling a house and renting for a bit. And I was like, over this idea of being sold and stuck on home ownership being the only best investment I could have. And I was looking for more risk and more opportunity. And I was okay renting if we couldn't buy again and all this stuff. But I piled a bunch of money into weed stocks. It did pretty good. And at the same time, somehow on the internet, on probably on my YouTube feed, I started learning about Bitcoin. I can't even remember the video or which page, or it could have even been an ad on a browser for all I know. And luckily didn't succumb to any scams or anything, which there are out there, phishing scams and all sorts of too good to be true crypto enticements. And I have a poker background. I played a lot of poker, and I have that's allowed me to appreciate variance when it comes to making the right decisions and still having a negative outcome in terms of a losing outcome of your sides of your poker stack. And so I just knew that like, if you find something and you had conviction behind an asset class that was going to trend upwards in market cap and adoption, that you can drown out all the noise and all the daily swings and even the big swings of bear markets. And if you can hold on for 5 to 10 years into like a young volatile asset class, the returns are ginormous compared to, I know ginormous isn't a real word, they're gigantic compared to like that boomer, I'm generalizing here, but compared to traditional equities and making your 7 or 8% a year on average, right? So I was just looking for high risk, high return plays, being willing to withstand the volatility and understanding that volatility works both ways. That's how you make money on the upside, is if you can enter a young asset class when there's not much money in it, and as more money piles in, it goes up.
Certainly. Yeah. Especially starting young is a huge key too, because you can, withstand that volatility, and Bitcoin does it for you. I mean, I got in at a good time. July of 2020 was when I still invest pretty regularly, especially when there's dips like right now. Toss a little more in, but yeah, it helps just being in it for the long term for sure, and kind of understanding the value underneath it that is being driven through it, especially listening to a lot of people much smarter than me talk about it and explain it in ways that I can't explain. But for me, when I first got in, I was like, I can be pretty open and willing to put in some risky stuff, figuring you can always make more money. So it's especially when I'm 26 now, so
That's awesome.
being willing to go through that. But yeah, it's something that I talk to people, and I tried to convince My parents. I actually convinced my mom to get in a little bit. My dad's tougher. If he doesn't fully understand something, he's not getting in on it, which is, served him well through his life. And,
Yeah.
he hasn't gotten into any like really shitty situations with stuff like that, which happens on the flip side of it. But I have a little bit more of her, not gambling wise, but just like willing to be a little riskier. So I was able to convince her to get in a little bit last Thanksgiving about a year ago.
Right
But
on.
yeah, it's fun to see and kind of fun to be a part of. Are you involved more into any like with NFTs or like on the Ethereum side of it, like Web 3.0? And I'm not super familiar with that, but just that whole sort of like metaverse movement.
My only exposure to that is my Ethereum bag, which I'm very happy with, and I wish it was bigger. I believe the blue chips of Bitcoin and Ethereum are essential, and I'm not interested in, like, I have a a risk tolerance for investing, and I also kind of know, I don't know, I have my limits and I have my boundaries, and I'm not nerdy enough and techy enough, and was like, and I didn't dabble in NFTs yet. Other than my exposure, I believe investing in Ethereum is a very reasonable asset to invest in for Web 3.0 and NFTs, right? Because everything's being built on top of ETH and whatnot on that Ethereum network. And not everything, but a lot of the intellectual capital is flowing to Ethereum, and it's like crazy how much, like, I think people underestimate how much further ahead Ethereum is over the Ethereum killers like Cardano and Algo, like other platforms that are trying to do the same thing, that are just smart contract platforms. Like, there is a lot of intellectual capital and capital itself in the Ethereum network, and they are doing what they can to scale intentionally, smartly, like with intelligence. And I think there's a lot more risk with other smaller cap and medium cap plays than people realize. Like, in 10 to 20 years, I can confidently say I'm pretty sure Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to be here. But everything else, including number 3 and 4 on the list, it's like, if it's around, it might be number 100 or 200, and it's not like, as promising as it was. And because if you go back every 3 to 4 years and you look over the last 12 years of crypto, like, the top 10 list keeps changing. So yeah, I used to spend 90 minutes a night listening to a couple of YouTubers, and every time I was learning, I was going down that rabbit hole of the value of Bitcoin, and I truly believe it's going to make the world a better place. So there's this, I want to make money, and I also enjoy investing in things that are going to benefit humanity, and so it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. And it is important, I think, to keep that balance. And I have like vast majority of my crypto investments are Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think I have like 5 NFTs that I was just like, here's some bigger, projects that are well known. If this does, do something crazy in 2 years, I'll just toss them in here and see what happens. If I lose it, so be it. And then I recently got into, this is like way riskier than any of the other stuff, but staking with, I think it's Time Wonderland. It's
okay,
like,
so you're staking in Decentraland or in some kind of metaverse thing?
Yeah, in a DeFi thing. Yeah, it's staking time. That coin or asset, or I should know more about it given that I've invested in it. But yeah, that's something that I came across. A buddy told me about it. It's like insane returns that I am very aware could just like go to zero. But it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, all right, if it does run up, I'm gonna pull my investment and just leave whatever else is in there and let it ride for a bit. But if it hits, if it goes crazy, cool. If not, I'll be okay too. So I try and keep that in mind. And yeah, like most of what I have by a lot is Bitcoin and Ethereum, because yeah, Bitcoin, I don't think there's anything that's comparable, as even though people will say that like, oh, it's a lot slower, it's old news, it's like, gold, whatever equivalent. Doesn't have the functionality of all of these other things. It's like that it's a long term, it's considered an asset. It's like having digital gold. There's many reasons why it will be here longer than others. And just the idea that it's deflationary in itself, there's a fixed cap in itself. Like a lot of these other things don't have that. And that's a huge part of it. And I think people just kind of write that off sometimes when they get into all of the other, shit coins and whatnot. But yeah, I think having that balance of, willing to risk, but also, not going crazy where you're just completely gambling 100% is important, especially as, you get more responsibilities as, you get a little older and whatnot.
I mean, one other part I want to share about this, because I had a friend that we talked investments with, and he's more risk off. And I've ended up putting in over 6 figures. I don't mind being transparent with money, but I put over 6 figures into crypto. And that was over the last 4.5 years or so. And so it's done very well. And I'm still holding on because I'm trying to, I mean, it's not this like more is better, but here's part of my story. My friend couldn't believe, like, he couldn't sleep at night, right? With that amount of money in such a risky asset. Where for me, I had like kissed that 100K goodbye because I didn't need it. My life, it's this, and I think this could maybe land with your followers or your type of mindset and spiritual type abundance piece. It's like my life is already so full that I was like, I want to have more wealth because I don't want to trade my time for a paycheck forever. But I love the lifestyle I've and I love the jobs I have to make money and support my family. And I was like, if I lose this 100K, my life is still so good. But if I'm right about this 100K, I'm changing like multiple generations coming down. Like my kids' lives are going to be different. And like, there's entitlement issues and different conversations to go on about that. Like, like easy times can make for some pretty weak men out there. And so it's like, I don't just want to like hand my kids a bunch of wealth, but it's like, there's things I could do in my community if I make mega wealth. There's the ways you can contribute to the world. And I already have an abundance of wealth. So there was that, I literally made peace with being enough and having enough before I invested and kept just kind of almost seemingly stupidly invest that much money into something that most of my friend and most people are like, you're nuts, you're crazy. And I was thinking that line between like crazy and doing something that feels right and true it's a perception thing, but it's like, it's so thin. It's like, maybe I am a little bit fucking crazy. And I was like, that's okay. So that's part of my investing thesis and part of why I always advocate only invest in what you know. And if it's going to be risky, you got to be willing to lose it. And I was honestly willing to lose over 100K because it's just money. It's not a big deal. And it's like, I was designing a life I wanted to live without that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fucking love that. And it's so important to keep in mind, like, what's enough. And I've been posting more and more videos about just like this idea that we're always striving for more. And I catch myself too, because when I started creating content, it was just something I imagined being old. I thought back on my life. I pictured being 100 years old. What do I regret about my life? It was not creating more content. For whatever reason, that just kept coming up. So I was like, fuck it. I know I'm going to regret this. I'm going to start doing it. I had no expectations of anything whatsoever. I didn't do it to gain followers. I didn't do it to, get rich and famous. I just did it because I knew I would regret it if I didn't. So just the day that I started doing it, I had already succeeded. There was nothing more that I needed out of it. But there are times where I catch myself like in certain, I want more followers or views on videos, and I get sort of tied up in that. Then I sit back and think like, I never wanted this to begin with. I've already succeeded. So I catch myself regularly, just like, and I don't get too down that path too often, but like just here and there, it'll come up. And something I did that's helped me a lot was, I think it was a year or two ago, I made a list, or sort of two lists, and I split it down the middle, and it was things that make me happy. And on one side, it was things that cost money, and the other side, it's things that don't cost money. And it helped me because it allowed me to understand more clearly, because if you don't take the time to do that, like, you have an idea of what makes you happy, but like it may not be as clear. So what I noticed from it were a couple things, but one of them being my list for things that made me happy that didn't cost money was way longer than the side that cost money. And then
Cool.
on the side that cost money, it was like not that many things. And so because naturally I've always grown up as like a saver, I never really, it's almost was harder for me to allow myself to spend more money. I was coming from that side. And especially living in New York for my first year, like I was very, very frugal when I was with myself. Like when I was with friends, you don't want to be the cheap guy out there at all. But like when I was by myself, I was very cheap with myself. Like I made my initial starting salary for my job was, I think, 60,000. I lived like I was making 30,000 essentially.
Right.
And it allowed me, like I saved a lot. So I was actually able to make some investments with things that allowed me to grow my wealth pretty quick when certain things came along. Cause I didn't have necessarily an idea for why I was saving money, but I knew it was just like, I didn't need to spend more money just to spend more money. And I think there's a lot of factors that tie into that. And a lot of it is, other people's perceptions of you and trying to live based on other people's perceptions. You a lot of times will find yourself spending money on things you don't actually need or like or want to impress people you don't actually like. So I think there's a lot of things that come into play with that. But for me, understanding that was hugely helpful and just taking the time to think about things that actually make me happy. And so now it's like some of my favorite things to do, like the things on my list that cost money that make me happy are traveling, skiing, going to the beach. And that's like the things that sort of cost money. I mean, skiing, I get the Epic Pass. So that's, 800-900 bucks a year, and then traveling. So I'm more okay with spending that money or going on a ski trip with my friends, and those can get expensive, buying flights and whatnot. But then keeping in mind that there's very few things. So when it comes to other things, like for clothes, for example, I rarely get new clothes. Like I think I've had this shirt for a few years. Like most of my clothes are pretty old. They still fit, they're in decent condition. But so I think keeping in mind just what you need and what you have and when enough is enough will allow you then, when it comes back to investing, to throw, if you believe in something, you're like, fuck it, I'll throw, 10, 20, 30 grand into this because I don't need that money. I already have plenty. And if I'm right and this hits, that'll turn into, maybe 10x in the next, 5 years. But sort of my mindset when it comes to spending money and investing and whatnot.
Most people, I believe, have limiting thoughts around money and also time and work and all that. Like, I feel like we could be there. This is the digital gold rush. And it's like before, you needed to be literally willing to have the balls to go travel to Alaska and follow the gold rush back in the day, or you needed to be a prince or princess sitting on an oil field to benefit from, right? Or you needed to be an intellectual or have the smarts of computer programming and whatnot to be a part of the .com era. Never before have we had the gatekeepers removed and the accessibility to invest as venture capitalists ourselves in a digital gold rush. And so I think a lot of people that are working, that are making between 60 and 100K a year, could work for 5 to 10 more years, especially if they become hyper savers and invest 30 to 40% of their income into digital assets in a smart way with a bit of a plan. They are done working in less than a decade. It doesn't take, and that almost seems scamish to some, but people are just no, I'm supposed to get that degree and work 40 years. And that's what I got to do. I got to work 50 years now because of inflation. It's you don't have to, you don't have to. And it's all the information is out there, but the beliefs are just limiting, and people aren't going to act or shift or want to change it up.
Yeah, certainly. And that's sort of become, I think even just you saying that, it kind of hit me, just my mindset when it comes to content creation. I haven't really monetized a ton. I wrote a short little ebook a couple months ago that I have in my profile. I do a bunch of discounts for it. So it's usually around $6 to $9, but it's typically 15. So I made some money off that.
How many have you sold?
I've sold like 120 or
That's awesome.
140 or something.
I
Yeah.
should write a book on how to keep skiing fun and how to teach kids and sell it for $8, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's my thing too. Is I do like discounts. So it's usually a lot of times I'll do like big discounts just because I want people to have it, and it's like it's something that allows me to get something out of this stuff, having a following. But a lot of times it'll be $6 with discount codes, and it's never really more than $10. I'll literally in the link write like use this discount to get it like 40% off or
Yeah.
something. But yeah, I think for me it's like especially with the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin stuff in like, I don't plan on selling anytime soon. And if I can sort of in, like you said, in 10 years, have that as, there that I can, I don't know, borrow off of here and there or whatever, and then just be making some income that isn't something anything crazy off of content. So just so that I don't have to work a job on top of it and just be able to travel and make videos and make vlogs and TikToks and whatever and just do that stuff because that's what I really enjoy doing most. I don't hate my day job, but it's definitely not something I'm super passionate about. So
Yeah.
in, 5 to 10 years, if I'm able to sort of use that and not have to rely on content to make, a ton of money, but just enough to like sort of pay the bills and then have the investments kind of building in the background, I think be pretty cool.
Do you have a couple thousand extra every month left over from your living expenses?
uh yeah, yeah.
I think you should be dollar cost averaging Bitcoin and Ethereum every other Monday, regardless of price.
Yeah, I probably should. I
Regardless of price, take the stress out of it. Time in the market is better than timing the market. It's been proven. If you like wait for dips, the times you miss out on rises and whatnot, like especially if you wait for a significant dip, just DCA, take the stress, take the brain, the decision making process out of it. Once you make that choice, you know where your capital is going and what you're investing in. Every 2 weeks, $1,000. Every 2 weeks, $1,500. Whatever you can do, whatever, $500, and you just do that for the next. And like there is going to likely be another like mega bear market where like things might sell off, but like we don't know when, we don't know, right? And it's like, but if you can hold on for one more like bear cycle. So bull markets make people money, bear markets make people rich. So if you can pile in money during a bear market when everybody's like it's going lower, it's going lower, it's going to go back to 20,000, it's going to go back to 10,000. Like I kind of believe we're going to see Bitcoin in the medium term in the next year, 2022, hit between 100 and 200K. So 150 to 200K, maybe 120, 130 on the low end. And then it'll probably drop back down to around these prices, like 50K US. And that's going to be that 75% drop. If it hit 200K, drops back down to 50, like that's going to shake out so many people. But buying at 50K in a year and a half or two from now, after it drops, is going to be such a better deal than it is now from like a risk perspective because it'll have already dropped 75%. And you just hold on for 5 to 7 years, dollar cost averaging every other Monday for that, you'll be done working.
Yeah, no, I should. That is a good point because usually my thing now is just like I put a bunch in at first when it was around 10,000 when I got in,
Right.
and since then I'm just like it'll just be a random day where it's a little bit lower, or I just feel like it, and I'll just put like 5 grand in just because it's like because sometimes I just have stuff in cash or like in my checking account, and I'm like I don't need this. Like I don't have a ton of things that I'm like worried about getting or whatever. And sometimes I'll hold off just like when I moved back into New York, I was living with my parents for a few months during COVID for a while. My last lease ended in March. So in between March and September, I was down in Florida with my parents. But since then, knowing that I was going to be moving in September, I was like, all right, I have to stop myself from dumping all of my money into Bitcoin just so I have enough to like cover my initial,
Yeah.
security deposit and whatnot. But it really is, it comes down to that and my friend who got me into it. And I joke sometimes just about how little we have in cash sometimes. So it almost forces us to not live like we have a shitload of money, even though, when we look at our, crypto accounts, it is quite a bit, but it's funny. But I should just start not thinking of. That's what my friend does. He does, I think, weekly few hundred every single week. And he's been doing that for, I don't know, 3 years.
Dollar cost averaging, man, it's the best. No matter what asset class you're in, you're just not trying to swing trade, day trade. You just get it in there. Time in the market better than timing the market.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, that's good advice. I appreciate it, Eric. But I'm curious. It looked like are you guys on a trip right now, or were you this past weekend?
We were last week. We were in Big White, out near just outside Kelowna, British Columbia.
Okay.
So that's a ski resort there, and that was just somebody actually, one of my followers reached out with a ski chalet that they had, a ski in, ski out, pretty nice high shelf type accommodation, and
I saw the videos of it on your story. I think, yeah, it looked beautiful.
yeah. So it was like really, kind of the highlight, something to experience. I just finished the vlog today of me skiing with my son today, and then I'm 80% done the vlog from Big White. So there'll be a a 8 or 10 minute YouTube vlog on our Big White trip, which had some powder and amazing stay. And so that was cool. It was sort of like planting a seed for what our next winter could look like if we wanted to go and travel and muck around a bit more, as a family experiencing ski resorts with creating content.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Do you guys have trips planned like for throughout the winter, or does it just kind of like as it comes up, you're like, oh, let's do this, in a few weeks?
Oh, both. So at like our resort, Fernie Alpine Resort, is owned by Resorts of the Canadian Rockies. We get to ski as a staff family pass. We get to ski at Kimberley Resort and Kicking Horse Resort in Golden, BC. So there's some decent resorts that are worth going to, especially when the skiing was free, and the hotels are cheap because of the staff discount. So we would always do that. Last year we won. Courtney, I won my first film contest I entered. It was a mountain love story contest. And I created a 2-minute edit of like how Courtney and I met and how we made a baby by accident. And we won 3 ski trips. And so we're going to go to one of them was in our hometown, so we don't need to go to it, but we're still doing staycations at the hotel. And then we're going to Revelstoke Resort for 2 nights, 2 days of skiing. And then Golden, we'll just bring the kids. So it's just a combination of like social media trips. We won some trips, and then we get to go ski at a few other resorts for cheap.
That's awesome. Do you guys ever make it down to the States, the US Rockies?
So as a ski patroller in Fernie, we do exchanges. We would send 2 patrollers from our resort and trade for a week with 2 at a different resort. So I've been to Big Sky in Montana on exchange, and to Crystal Mountain in Washington. And like we only get to go every 3 to 5 years, depending on the rotation and whatnot. So many of my teammates and coworkers have gone to Utah and Jackson Hole and Colorado, and have done exchanges with lots of resorts. So it's a cool perk of the job, because you're basically on like a working holiday, and you get shown the red carpet, and you literally get to ski the best runs behind the ropes with the patrollers at that mountain.
Damn. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I actually just planned a trip with some of my friends to Big Sky in January, so I'm very excited for that. I went there. So like I went there when I was younger. So like my parents, my dad got into skiing. I think he was a little bit older when he started, but like in his 20s, mid 20s, and I think my mom similarly, but he loved it. And so when I grew up in Minnesota, but every winter we would do basically family ski vacation every Christmas break. And then my dad would do an individual trip with, I have a younger brother and a younger sister. So he would take one of us just somewhere over like our February break. And that was kind of like a big part of my childhood. At the same time, I played hockey growing up, so I wasn't able to like ski necessarily a ton, but since then I've absolutely loved it. So yeah, let me know if you're ever in Park City. I think I would love to ski with your family and hop in with you guys at some point. But
I had a guy who helped me with my logo, who's a ski instructor at Park City, and we've talked about linking up and stuff. So if we ever do a family trip, it'll be like a family season. We'll be coming to a lot of big resorts in the US, I think.
Okay, let me know. Yeah, we'll be in touch. I had one more question that I just thought of. With your kids, like being involved in your content, do they show any inklings in wanting to get into their own content, or could you kind of see because you have 3 kids, right? could you see if any of them maybe show more interest in being involved in the videos or kind of wanting to start to create their own videos at all?
So our oldest is 8, and they get screen time, but we're pretty like limited on that. They don't have any personal devices. They know what YouTube is. I don't think they like my oldest might know what Instagram is, and they don't know what TikTok is. And so we're kind of like, I don't know, shielding them from the drawbacks and downsides of screens and social media. And so it's not really in their psyches yet. Um, all they know is daddy makes videos and some people like watching them. And we get to do some trips and get some free stuff because some people like watching the videos. And so, my daughter is like she steals the most hearts and is the ham. My middle child is the most challenging one for us, both of us, that just forces us to be patient and become better leaders and parents. And so he's not in the videos as much because he just sort of zooms off and doesn't want to stick around. And I don't want to force him to. And then my oldest is like responsible and knows more what's going on and is like more of a team player and like kind of gets it. And so I think it's too early to tell. I think in another 4 or 5 years, the two oldest could have some I'd be totally happy to give them some skills or to like mentor them and teach them and have them learn from YouTube. Like we're not anti screens and anti technology, just trying to be mindful at this young age.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And yeah, I don't think I'll be parenting anytime soon, but yeah, I appreciate everything you do. And I absolutely love your content. I think you're doing an amazing job balancing all of that. I can only imagine. I know all I have is my own responsibility for myself pretty much. And that can be enough at times. But yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell and getting to know you a little bit, I absolutely love what you're doing and really appreciate you taking the time to create all the content and sharing your life with the world, Erich.
Cool. I appreciate that, Andrew. Thanks for having me on. It's great chatting with you today.
Yeah. I will let you get back to the family, but thank you again for coming on. This will probably be out, I don't know, within the next couple days, I'm sure. I usually just download it and upload it pretty much, but
Nope.
I will tag you and everything and let you know.
Cool, man. Awesome. We'll stay in touch online. Shoot me a DM anytime.
Sounds good. All right. Bye, everyone.